This is a very hard video to write a script for because my wording has to be incredibly precise. So if anything I say seems off or you have any questions, I think I'll have to make some clarifications in the comment section. It's just my style has become a pretty big in-joke within the art, review and rant community. It's a phrase often associated with stubborn artists who refuse criticism, and it's commonly laughed at by a lot of us. But when exactly is it acceptable to pass something off as mere stylistic choice? That's what I'm here to find out. Art style isn't a thing you can find overnight. It takes years to find a style that you're completely comfortable with. I bet some people never even find a style that they're competent with. It all depends on the person, the medium, their influences and the tools they use. In the art, rant and review community, we often find that "it's just my style" is commonly used as a cover-up for poor anatomy or colouring, so that's what I'll be focusing on most today. And before I begin, I want to just say that there is no shame in having poor anatomy in your drawings or poor colouring, but there is shame in ignoring the issues at hand and convincing yourself that it is just a stylistic choice. Everyone starts off somewhere and it takes years to even begin to get good at anatomy. Anatomy is an artist's worst enemy. It's frustrating, especially when you can't draw a specific pose or your work doesn't come out the same way that you envisioned it to. And that's fine. It takes practice. But don't convince yourself that your work is flawless. It's healthy to find problems in your own work. It shows that you know that you need to improve certain things. I'm sure you've all heard the phrase, "you're your own worst critic," and there's truth behind that. You can be proud of your work, but to pretend that there's never anything wrong with it is a self-destructive habit that needs to be broken if you want to get anywhere with it. I'll be honest with you, my anatomy is shit. I know that, but if someone tells me it's shit, I'm not going to defend it by saying it's just my style. Instead, I'll just tell them that their criticism is shit. Because, let's be honest, improve your anatomy is the worst piece of constructive criticism ever. But more on that in a future video. But with all that aside, let's get into the actual topic on hand. All examples of pictures I'll be showing have been volunteered by my DeviantArt watchers. A link to the galleries will be in the description below. This video is also voted on by my DeviantArt watchers. There's still a poll up on my page if you want to vote for the next video. It's pretty neck and neck right now. Anyway, after speaking to quite a few of my friends about this topic, we've all pretty much come to the conclusion that stylistic choices often carry over from piece to piece, but with mistakes they aren't always consistent. Let me explain. In this piece, which is pretty solid by the way, the arms are very disproportionate to the body, but if you look at their other artwork, the arms are much more proportionate, considering human arms typically rest just below the hip. When you think about that and then look at the previous piece, there is no evidence to suggest that the artist is trying to skew the proportions for a foreshortening effect, so we can assume that making the arms too long was merely a mistake on their part. So, in this case, it's clearly not a stylistic choice. When we look up the definition of art style, this is what pops up. In the visual arts, style is a distinctive manner which permits the grouping of works into related categories. Style is often divided into the general style of a period, country or cultural group of artists or art movement, and the individual style of the artist within that group style. You might have noticed there's a lot of repetition of the word group in that definition. Like I said before, if this particular stylistic choice is carried across from piece to piece and it fits with the rest of the image, then it might not be a mistake. But on the flip side, a lot of people try to hide their mistakes in different ways. One such example is when people can't draw hands, they instead draw all their characters with long sleeves, or draw their hands behind their back. So will drawing a character with long sleeves be considered a style if the artist only draws characters with long sleeves? Well, no. A style is the way in which the artist draws, not the clothes or the pose the character is in. Now, the artist I have just talked about has clearly been drawing for a little while, and whilst I wish I could sit and talk about the art community as a whole for this video, I'm going to focus on younger artists. Now, when I say younger artists, I don't necessarily mean kids. I mean artists who are new to drawing. You can be young and be a great artist, everyone develops at their own rate and that's fine, but we see more young artists using the "it's just my style" as an excuse for a mistake that was made. I'm also going to be focusing mainly on digital artists because, as you can see, digital art is more my forte. One way you can spot mistakes is by looking at what style the artist is trying to convey. Here are some examples of artists trying to draw in a chibi style, but there's just something off. One issue a lot of people deal with when they start out is making the eyes way too big. I've struggled with it, these guys are struggling with it, everyone struggles with it. Because eyes are one of the most expressive tools in an image, people seem to go overboard with them. It's a common misconception that big eyes equals cute, but giving a character massive eyes can throw the entire image off altogether. You have to remember that eyes are about halfway down the face, and of course hairlines easily make you think otherwise. Foreheads exist, artists need to remember that. Another thing digital artists tend to do is go ham with filters and gradients. As I said before, it's a thing we all do. This is mainly a thing people with heavier programs like Photoshop and Psy do, because obviously you can't make gradients or use filters in things like Paint. Here's an example of two artists who use filters and gradients too heavy-handedly. With the first picture, the shading on the face and the background doesn't bode too well with the colouring on the rest of the body. It seems too out of place and inconsistent. The second picture is rather ambitious considering it's a picture of a full scene, which is always hard to pull off regardless of skill level, but the amount of dark shading takes focus away from where it should be, and if it was perhaps left at a lower opacity, the image would feel much more inviting and more details would pop out more. Finally, one mistake that every artist makes is the light source. Everyone makes this mistake if they're not careful enough. It doesn't matter how good at art you are, it's such an easy mistake to make. The lighting on these two pieces is inconsistent and there are shadows placed in places they shouldn't be. A tip I've read about light sources is to draw a ball or something in the position you want your light source to be coming from. Sometimes an artist just happens to forget where the light source is when they're colouring, and that's fine, it's a mistake we all make. Now, I want to thank all my volunteers for submitting art for this video. I'd have made it much longer, but I'll probably be making a part 2 if there's anything else I can think of to add to this topic. Basically, the difference between a mistake and stylistic choice is context and circumstance. You have to see where the artist is coming from and what style they're trying to succeed in. Art is subjective, and everyone in the rant and review community should know that. The next time you see an artist using the "it's just my style" excuse, think about where they're coming from first, before making assumptions that they're wrong or don't know how to draw. Just be considerate of people, alright? Thank you. Degenerate,